This podcast is brought to you by The Senior Techie, a source of information for seniors and others about technology. Welcome to the Senior Techie podcast. Today, we are diving into a really crucial question, one that actually came from one of our listeners. What is it that seniors really need to know about technology that they might not already understand?
It's such a foundational question, and honestly, one we have to address with some urgency because the stakes, well, they're incredibly high.
They really are.
So our mission in this deep dive is to take these complex, often sort of invisible parts of modern tech and translate them, turn them into concepts that are not just, theoretically understandable, but actually useful, things that help you maintain control and independence.
Absolutely. The goal here is empowerment. It's making sure that technology is an enabler, a tool for independence, for safety, for connection, and not, a constant source of frustration or confusion.
Or worse, vulnerability. And this isn't just us guessing. The Senior Techie says the research for this deep dive is based on over 173 sources, and it reveals a really clear pattern. The problems seniors are running into, they're not random. They come from these systematic knowledge gaps that have been created by, well, just how fast everything has changed, and by designs that really prioritize younger, more tech-native users.
So let's be really clear about what we mean by these gaps. This is not about an inability to learn something new.
Not at all.
It's more like a generation was kind of skipped in the early lessons. They're missing that foundational context, the sort of mental models that let younger people just intuitively get how these systems work.
Precisely. The core issue is that so many of these foundational concepts, you could call it the invisible plumbing of technology, they've just never been properly explained to this demographic.
Right.
So they can master the steps, click this button, open that app, but they often don't understand the logic underneath it all. What's happening when they click? Why does it sometimes fail? And this lack of context creates anxiety.
And anxiety is the biggest barrier.
It's the number one barrier to using technology with any kind of confidence.
That's a great analogy. It's the difference between knowing how to drive a car and having a basic idea of how the engine works. If you don't know anything about the engine, that check engine light is terrifying, even if it's just a loose gas cap.
Exactly. Our listener is asking us to explain the engine. So our focus today is on practical, jargon-free knowledge that has a direct impact on your quality of life, on your financial security, and your personal safety.
Okay, so we're going to walk through these major knowledge gaps. We'll try to give you, the listener, that context you need to feel in control of your devices instead of feeling like they're controlling you. So let's start with section 1. These are the core conceptual gaps, the things happening behind the screen that younger users just kind of take for granted. And the first one is huge, maybe the most mysterious: the internet itself and this idea of the cloud.
This is absolutely fundamental. The research shows that while, 73% of seniors 65 and older are online regularly, they're using email, browsing the web, that high usage doesn't mean they have a foundational understanding of what's happening.
So they're good users, but they're missing the mental map of how it all connects.
Exactly. And the cloud, the name itself sounds like magic. It sounds like some vague weather system.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's where the confusion starts, right?
It's where the gap is widest. The cloud is seen as this mystical, abstract thing, when in reality it's just, it's concrete, it's physical, it's massive buildings full of computers and hard drives that store your data.
So your photos aren't just floating in the ether.
No, they're sitting on a hard drive somewhere in Oregon or Virginia, and you're just accessing it over the internet.
And that misunderstanding leads directly to a very common frustration, doesn't it? The difference between storage on your phone versus storage in your cloud account.
That's where the anxiety really spikes. When your phone flashes that red alert, storage full, cannot take more photos.
Oh, that's the worst.
It is, and it causes immediate panic. The worry is that you're about to lose everything you already have because you genuinely don't know if the warning is about the phone in your hand or about this other bigger cloud account.
Okay, so let's use that analogy you mentioned earlier to make this really clear. The storage on your device, on your phone or your computer, that's like a filing cabinet in your house.
Right. It's physically there, it's easy to get to, but it has a fixed size. Once it's full, it's full. You can't stuff another photo into it.
And the cloud storage is people.
The cloud storage is like a huge, professionally run storage unit across town. It's not in your house, so it doesn't clutter up your device, but you can get to it anytime you have an internet connection.
And you can usually buy more space if you need it.
Exactly. It's expandable. Understanding that difference, that simple concept, lets you manage those storage-full warnings without panic. You can just set your phone to automatically back up photos to the cloud and then delete them from the device. Problem solved.
That distinction alone would relieve so much stress.
Okay, let's pivot to another big source of anxiety that pops up constantly: automatic software updates.
Ah, yes. The dreaded pop-up that always shows up at the worst possible time. These updates trigger a lot of distress for older adults. There's a real fear there, isn't there?
A huge fear. They operate under the belief that installing an update is the single most likely way to break something, to scramble all the settings they finally got working.
And from their perspective, that makes sense. They're thinking, it's working perfectly right now. Why on earth would I change it? They want to know the why.
And that is exactly where the tech industry has just completely failed in its communication.
How so?
Because the explanation that's missing is that updates aren't just about adding new emojis or changing the colors. The core message is that updates are overwhelmingly critical security patches. The concept they're missing is that old software is like a house with unlocked doors.
But let me push back a little on that, because that fear isn't totally irrational.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all had an update that did completely change the interface and forced us to relearn everything.
That's a very fair point. The disruption is real and it's frustrating. But we have to separate the disruption from the danger. The interface change is an annoyance. The security risk is, well, it's an existential threat to your financial safety.
So what's the risk, specifically?
Hackers actively track and publish guides on how to exploit known security flaws, those unlocked doors, in older software. If you're running last year's operating system, the ways to break in are public knowledge. The update is the digital equivalent of changing the locks on your house.
That makes the trade-off much clearer. Okay, let's move on to data flow and permissions. This ties right into that anxiety about what the tech is doing behind your back. The senior techie says a shocking 79% of users just accept app permissions because they assume the app won't work otherwise.
And that indiscriminate acceptance, it creates a massive vulnerability, especially when they grant access to things that have nothing to do with what the app does.
Right. The question they're asking themselves is, why does a simple flashlight app need access to my entire contact list or my exact location? It feels wrong.
Because it is illogical from a user perspective. The missing link that needs to be communicated is data monetization.
They're selling your data.
In a nutshell, yes. Many apps collect far more data than they need. Your location history, your contacts, who you call. It's often aggregated, anonymized, and sold to third parties for targeted advertising or market research. And that reality is buried in page 47 of the user agreement that nobody reads.
Which leads right into privacy settings, which are often a maze.
A deliberate maze, in many cases. The research is stark. 83% of adults over 50 say they're not confident about their online privacy. But only about half of users over 65 have ever changed their social media privacy settings. Because they don't know where to find them, or the language is so technical. What's the difference between public, friends of friends, and custom? The friction is so high that it leads to this dangerous sense of just resignation, a feeling that you can't control it anyway.
Okay, that brings us to section 2, security. And if the first section was about building that mental model, this is about protecting yourself when you don't understand the risks.
This is, without a doubt, the most consequential knowledge gap. We are in the middle of a cybersecurity crisis for seniors. The numbers are staggering.
What are we talking about?
Nearly $5 billion lost to scams in 2024 alone. That's a 43% increase in just 1 year. And that's a reflection of these incredibly sophisticated scams that are directly exploiting these knowledge gaps.
So let's start with a daily struggle, something that affects everyone but really hits seniors hard: password management.
The friction here is just immense. They don't understand the underlying security math or the threat model. The questions are basic. Why do I need all these numbers and symbols and capital letters? And why can't I just reuse the one really good, complicated password I've finally managed to remember?
The technical answer about hashing and rainbow tables, that's just going to go over most people's heads.
Exactly. We have to translate it. So you can explain that hashing is like scrambling your password the second you create it. Think of it like putting a document through a shredder. So if a company gets hacked, the thieves don't get your password. They just get the shredded pieces.
Okay, that makes sense.
But if the password is too simple, like password 123, The shredder doesn't do a very good job. Hackers have these massive pre-calculated lists, the rainbow tables, that can basically reassemble those wheat shreds back into your original password in seconds.
So a simple password is now a huge liability.
It's an open door. And their current coping strategies show how frustrated they are. They write them down in notebooks they keep by the computer. They reuse slight variations everywhere. They know it's not safe, but they feel like they have no other choice.
Which brings us to password managers, the safer alternative that so few of them are using.
The barrier here is deeply psychological. It's not just technical. They have this fear of storing all their eggs in one basket. The idea of putting every single password into one cloud-based program feels like it's concentrating the risk, not spreading it out.
Well, I get that skepticism. I mean, if someone gives my one master password, don't they get everything?
It's a critical question, and what they need to know, the reassurance they never get, is that these managers use heavy-duty encryption. It's fundamentally different than a normal cloud drive.
Meaning?
Meaning, even if the password manager company itself was breached, the attackers would just get a file of unreadable, scrambled gibberish. It's useless without your unique master password. And that one master password is far more secure than the dozens of weak, reused passwords you've scattered all over the internet.
So that single point of failure is actually more secure because of all the armor around it.
Precisely. That is the key concept that's been missing.
Okay, what about two-factor authentication, or 2FA? This is supposed to be the gold standard, but it's a nightmare for so many seniors.
The numbers are pretty shocking. The average installation time for a senior is 52 minutes. For a younger user, it's 10. They struggle with the expiring codes, the need to have their phone right next to them.
The whole concept is confusing. They're asking, what is being verified here? Why do I need two things? Is it really safer than just one super strong password?
And we need to hammer home the why. The core benefit is this. 2FA protects your accounts, even if your password gets stolen.
That's the key.
That's the whole point. A scammer tricks you into giving them your password. Without 2FA, they are in your bank account. With 2FA, they're still stuck on the outside because they don't have that second code that's sent only to your physical phone. That one fact justifies all the hassle.
And sometimes the design of the security devices themselves just makes things worse.
Oh, absolutely. Those little physical hardware tokens are tiny, they get lost, they're platform specific, so seniors just don't adopt them. They need to know that easier options exist, like simple text message codes or authenticator apps or even biometrics like a fingerprint.
Okay, let's move to the third critical area, recognizing modern scam tactics. Because the scams have evolved so much faster than the education about them.
They really have. Seniors might know about the classic email spam, but today's threats are so much more sophisticated. We're talking about AI voice cloning, deepfake videos, tech support scams that look completely legitimate.
It's hard to trust your own eyes and ears when the tech can mimic reality so perfectly.
It creates this instant paralyzing doubt. How can I be sure that the voice on the phone crying, saying it's my grandchild in trouble, is really them? The scammers rely on creating urgency and fear to short-circuit rational thought.
And we have to talk about the shame. Only 22% of fraud victims ever report it. They're ashamed, they're afraid of losing their financial independence, so they stay silent.
And that silence is exactly what the scammers count on. It's why the senior techie has been pushing for a critical knowledge checklist, a set of actionable safety points that need to be shared and practiced.
Let's go through that checklist right now. What are the essential things seniors need to know?
Okay, first, caller ID is meaningless. Scammers can easily spoof it to make it look like your bank or Medicare is calling. Never trust the number you see on the screen.
Got it. Rule 1. Don't trust the caller ID.
Second, and this is an absolute rule, unsolicited tech support pop-ups or phone calls claiming your computer has a virus are always a scam, 100% of the time. Legitimate companies like Microsoft or Apple will never initiate contact that way.
That's a great, simple rule. If you didn't ask for help, it's a scam.
Third is the verification procedure. If someone calls claiming to be from your bank or utility company, hang up immediately. Then you independently find the official number from your bank statement, the back of your card, their official website, and you call them back.
Never use a number they give you on the phone.
Never. Fourth, legitimate companies will never, ever ask for remote access to your computer out of the blue. Giving someone remote access is like handing them the keys to your entire digital life.
And finally, there's the new terrifying threat of AI voice cloning.
Yes, AI can now create a perfect clone of a loved one's voice from just a few seconds of audio, maybe from a social media video. So when that emergency call comes, it sounds completely real.
So what's the defense?
It's surprisingly low tech. You need to establish a secret verification word or a question with your close family members, something only you would know. If a call comes in claiming to be an emergency, you ask for that word. If they can't provide it, you hang up. It's a simple defense against a very advanced weapon.
Okay, let's broaden our view now beyond just security and look at the frontier of new technology. Section 3 is about these emerging technologies where the knowledge gap is just getting wider every day. Let's start with AI.
AI is already a part of their lives, even if they don't call it that. 48% of seniors use predictive text or autocorrect. They're using AI constantly, but very few understand how it actually works.
And that confusion shows up when their phone makes a bizarre autocorrect change to a message. They have no idea why it happened or how the phone came up with that weird word.
Right, they're left wondering, how does my phone know what I want to type? The underlying mechanism, that it's just a machine learning model predicting the most statistically likely next word, that's completely opaque.
And they're probably not aware that the system is learning from them, from their typing, which raises all sorts of privacy questions.
It does, and while AI offers huge benefits, translation, safety monitoring, fraud detection, that potential is undermined by a fundamental lack of trust. Only about 7% of older adults feel they have an advanced understanding of AI.
So what are their biggest concerns?
They're very rational concerns. 68% worry that AI will reduce human interaction and lead to more isolation. There are deep fears of constant monitoring without knowing how that data is being used. And their distrust is made worse by AI's tendency to hallucinate, to confidently state things that are completely wrong.
Which shatters their trust, especially if they're looking for, say, health information.
Exactly. This leads right into another area with the same problem, smart home technology. It promises so much for aging and place automated lights, fall detection.
But the adoption rates are still pretty low.
They are, and it's because of these knowledge gaps around privacy, reliability, and just the sheer complexity of setting it all up.
The privacy issue seems to be the biggest one.
It's paramount. Seniors correctly suspect that smart speakers are always listening for a wake word, but they don't know what happens after that, what's recorded, where is it stored, and most importantly, how can I review or delete those recordings?
And that lack of control leads to what the research calls privacy resignation.
That's it, a fatalistic acceptance that surveillance is just the price of admission. But they need to know the specifics. Could my health data from a smartwatch be shared with my insurance company? What happens if a fall detector sends a false emergency alert?
And this comes up a lot when family members want to install monitoring devices.
It does. And seniors need to know they have agency here. They can and should negotiate granular privacy controls. They can say, you can have access to a critical fall alert, but you cannot have access to my conversation history. Knowing those controls exist is empowering.
Let's talk about something that seems so simple but has become a huge barrier: QR codes.
This is a perfect example of technology creating exclusion. The research says 2/3 of adults over 60 are uncomfortable using them. That means they can't access menus in restaurants or check in for a doctor's appointment.
And the knowledge that's missing is just so basic.
It really is. They don't know that a QR code is just a fancy-looking web link. They don't know that their phone's camera can probably scan it without a special app. And most importantly, they don't understand the security risk that a malicious code can send them to a phishing site.
So what's the simple fix they need to learn?
It's a simple 3-step script. 1. Open your normal camera app. 2. Point it at the code and wait for the link to pop up. 3, and this is the critical safety step. Before you tap, look at the web address and make sure it looks legitimate. That simple process opens up this whole digital gateway for them safely.
Okay. Section 4 brings us to financial technology, where these gaps can have immediate and very costly consequences, especially for seniors on fixed incomes. Let's start with a subscription trap.
This is a silent but very real drain on savings. The average American spends about $91 a month on subscriptions, but that number can easily climb to $200 or $300. For someone on a fixed income, that's a huge deal.
And what are the knowledge gaps that are leading to this?
The first one is just understanding auto-renewal. They don't grasp that a free trial is designed to automatically become a paid subscription unless they actively cancel it in the right way at the right time.
And those small charges just start adding up?
Exactly. $5 here, $10 there. They don't notice it on their statement. Then there's the cancellation complexity. They expect to be able to just call someone and cancel like in the old days. But now you have to navigate these obscure settings menus deep inside an app.
And a lot of them don't realize that for phone apps, the subscription is managed through their Apple or Google account, not the app itself.
That's a huge point of friction. It's a digital scavenger hunt designed to make you give up, so we need to teach them the path to regaining control.
Which starts with what?
It starts with auditing their bank and credit card statements, looking for those recurring charges. They need to know where to find the master list of active subscriptions in their phone settings. And they need to understand that canceling mid-cycle usually doesn't get you a refund.
Okay, what about the second big financial hurdle? The whole streaming versus cable debate. The promise is savings, but the reality is often just more confusion.
For many seniors, the simplicity of cable, one remote, one guide, one bill is worth the extra cost precisely because they don't understand the alternatives.
So what are the key questions they need answered before they cut the cord?
First, a basic definition. What is streaming? We need to explain it's content coming over your internet connection, not a separate cable line. And that leads to the next gap. You need the right equipment.
Meaning good internet.
Reliable high-speed internet. And a compatible device like a smart TV or a Roku stick. Many seniors have slower internet plans or older TVs that just can't handle it.
And they worry about losing their favorite channels.
Absolutely. They need to know which local news or live sports they'll lose. Then there's the real financial comparison. Is the cost of 3 or 4 different streaming services plus high-speed internet actually cheaper than their cable bundle? Often it's not.
And finally, there's the interface complexity.
It's a huge cognitive load. Going from one remote and one guide to juggling multiple apps, each with its own login and its own weird menu, it's overwhelming. And that makes the expensive, known quantity of cable feel like the safer, saner choice.
Let's move to our 5th section on communication technologies. These tools should be reducing isolation, but sometimes they just add more stress. First up, video calling platform confusion.
The sheer number of choices, FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp, it creates this choice paralysis. They're afraid of picking the wrong one and not being able to connect with their family.
So they need a kind of simple comparison guide.
Exactly. They need to know about device compatibility. What works best if half the family has iPhones and the other half has Androids? They want to know about ease of use, which one has the biggest buttons and the simplest interface.
And reliability is huge.
Right.
A dropped call with a grandchild is just heartbreaking.
Call stability is paramount. They also need to know the setup requirements. Does everyone have to download the same app? And increasingly, they want to know about privacy. Which platforms are encrypted?
We should also touch on those specialized senior-focused devices.
Things like the GramPad. They're built for simplicity, which is great. But they introduce new questions. What's the real monthly cost? And is it compatible with the regular smartphones their family is using? Or does it create its own little isolated world?
Okay, let's talk social media privacy. Over 75% of seniors are on Facebook, but their understanding of privacy controls is limited. This leads to the oversharing problem.
High usage with low understanding is a recipe for disaster. The gaps here lead directly to fraud and identity theft. Seniors often don't know how to control who sees their posts, their profile info, or even their friend list.
And that shared information becomes ammunition for scammers.
Exactly. They need explicit guidance. Never post your address, your phone number, or your detailed travel plans. And most importantly, they need to know how to spot a cloned account. A scammer pretending to be a family member to ask for money.
That's terrifying because it plays on their trust.
It does. And another huge gap is understanding platform separation. They need to know that privacy settings on Facebook are completely separate from privacy settings on Instagram. One setting does not cover all.
Finally, in this section, let's talk about notification overload. This seems minor, but it causes real cognitive stress.
The constant random buzzes and pings from texts, emails, and apps, it's overwhelming. And the toxic outcome is alert fatigue. They start ignoring all the alerts, which means they might miss a critical message from family or a doctor's reminder.
So what do they need to know to get some peace of mind?
They need to understand notification hierarchy, how to disable the non-essential noise while keeping the critical alerts on.
And how to use Do Not Disturb without that fear of missing an emergency.
Right. They need to know how to set up exceptions for emergency contacts. And finally, they need to understand what those little red number bubbles on the app icons mean and how to clear them, just to reduce that constant visual clutter and stress.
So we've covered a ton of specific issues. Section 6 gets at the root of it all, the underlying knowledge architecture gap.
This is the invisible problem. Younger people grow up with this stuff, so they develop these intuitive mental models of how it all works. Seniors often lack those foundational schemas, which means every new piece of tech feels like starting from absolute zero.
So let's name some of these missing models.
Okay, first is the client-server model. Understanding that your banking app isn't just on your phone is a client talking to a remote server. That explains why you need an internet connection. Second is data synchronization. The magic of how a photo taken on your phone just appears on your tablet.
And the walled gardens of Apple versus Google.
Exactly. The software ecosystems model. Understanding why Apple devices talk to each other so smoothly but might have trouble with an Android device. And just basic models for account authentication and digital file management, how digital files and folders work differently from the physical paper files they've used their whole lives.
Without those models, every new app is a completely new language to learn.
Precisely. And this leads directly to a lack of troubleshooting knowledge. When something goes wrong, they lack the diagnostic framework that younger users apply automatically, so a simple glitch becomes an expensive tech support call.
The old turn it off and on again trick. They need to know why that works.
Exactly. They need to know that rebooting clears out the temporary memory and resets things. They need to know what cached data is and why clearing it can fix a slow app. They need a simple checklist. Check Wi-Fi, check storage, then reboot.
So, with all of this in mind, what are the concrete recommendations? How do we bridge this huge knowledge divide?
We need action in three main areas. First, we need to demand design for transparency from the tech industry. Companies have to prioritize explainability.
So using plain language and analogies like the filing cabinet one we use.
And providing just-in-time education. When you encounter a new feature, a little pop-up should explain it right then and there, in simple terms. And when an error happens, the system needs to have a graceful failure. It should explain what went wrong and suggest a fix, not just show an error code.
The second area is a huge need for structured, community-based education.
And the key here is incremental learning. One concept at a time with lots of patient, hands-on practice. The teaching has to be task-oriented, connected to a real benefit they care about, like managing their health records.
Intergenerational mentoring programs have been really successful with this.
They create a judgment-free zone for learning, and it requires ongoing support, not just a one-time class. Subscribing to sources like The Senior Techie, reading the articles, that provides the continuous knowledge they need.
And finally, we have to focus security education specifically on the vulnerabilities seniors face.
That means intensive scam tactic training, teaching them to recognize the psychological manipulation of urgency and fear. It means hands-on training with password managers to dispel those myths. And on a policy level, we need to demand mandatory transparency in data use and simplified, standardized privacy controls.
Wow, okay, that was an incredibly thorough deep dive, from the very structure of the cloud all the way to AI voice cloning.
And I think it clearly shows that these knowledge gaps, they're not about capacity or an unwillingness to learn. They're about accessibility. The data shows seniors are willing to learn. 73% are online. 54% are confident they can learn new tech. What's missing is the targeted, empathetic information.
And bridging this gap is about so much more than just convenience.
Absolutely. The knowledge gaps we talked about today are not just an inconvenience. They are a form of digital disenfranchisement. They directly impact a senior's ability to safely age in place, to maintain social connections, and to protect their financial security. Bridging this gap transforms technology from a source of vulnerability into a genuine enabler of independence and dignity.
So understanding technology, building those mental models, is just crucial for maintaining that independence and safety. Reading articles, subscribing to resources that break these things down, like the ones from The Senior Techie, is a really vital step toward that empowerment. This podcast was brought to you by The Senior Techie. If you'd like to keep up with their newsletters and podcasts, you can subscribe for free by going to theseniortechie.com.